has replaced teachers, professors, and even with AI coming out, do you think it's going to very shortly replace maybe
No,
you?
I don't think there is a serious threat to the existence of teachers, because you can never devalue the role of a good teacher in your life. Just one word of a good teacher, the teacher whom you look up to, will change your perspective, will change your life. That human element.
Welcome back to Between the Lines, a BR podcast. Skipping to the good part, the guest we have today is very special. Many hats, one woman. Let's welcome Dr. Shikha Shrivastava. Hi, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me over here.
Well, we are really glad you're here with us doing this session with us. A doctor, a scholar, poetess, a mother. I mean, all of this. In between all of this, who is Shikha Shrivastava?
Actually, you are so engaged, so occupied, that you hardly care who you are, because you have to just keep going with a lot of responsibilities, with a lot of other stuff. But still, I think that, it's like every human being is made up of multiple layers. And you can't take any of those layers, if you have to know that person in totality. So if I take my example, I have multiple roles to play. I have my work, which is very important. My family is there, my interests, my aspirations, my hobbies. So what is important here is, how do you create a balance out of that? And I'm glad that I'm able to do that well, at least to my satisfaction. But I don't want to take all the credit. My family is there. My husband is very supportive. My children are very affectionate. And they do care about my time and space. I've never had any kind of problems, from them. Rather, support all the time. And besides that, my emotional intensity, which is dispersed in my writings, that's very true to my life. And it helps me to connect with people effortlessly. So I'm glad that I'm able to live in all my elements. So if you don't mind, I would just like to render a few lines, from one of my poems, which has been published by your publication, Ussi mein qaid ussi se Riha. So the lines are like, kabhi aag, कभी तूफान, कभी पानी है. कभी आग, कभी तूफान, कभी पानी है. जाने क्या क्या मेरी कहानी है. कभी दायरा है तो सैलाब, कभी मेरे जज्बों की अपनी रवानी. गर जान लो तुम भी तो सुकून से रह सकोगे. गर जान लो तुम भी तो सुकून से रह सकोगे. मेरी इस्तराबी तबीयत को सह सकोगे. मैं उसी में हूँ कैद, उसी से रहा, जो ये तिलस्म जिंदगानी है. कभी आग, कभी तूफान, कभी पानी है. जाने क्या क्या मेरी कहानी है.
काफी खूबसूरत.
Thank you so much.
As a woman, do you feel that your individuality is something, that never got suppressed? I mean, we see a lot of women being suppressed, even though they are well educated. Everything is good. They're probably from the well-off backgrounds, but still, they personally feel, their individuality getting suppressed in between all of this. Maybe the society's expectations, whatever it is. So what is your take on that?
I have seen it's very natural in society that women have to face this since ages. And modern women especially, she is in the crossroads, because she has the exposure, the education, and she knows her individuality. And if it comes into clash with something else, that really pains her a lot. That results into actually mental trauma. It affects her psyche. So, but nowadays, I find people becoming very progressive, and especially women. They have sort of, gained mental strength to stand for themselves. So this is bringing sort of fresh air in society. And I think this will change the scenario. Because even if you compare the males in society, those who belong to older generations, to the youngsters, you will find that there's a lot of change. And I don't think like young boys, they don't understand the value of equal status. They are giving your place. I mean, they are giving you your dues, and which is very important. And young generation should be, I think they deserve a lot of admiration for this, that they understand the value of the equal status in society of both the genders, because only then the society will be worth to live in.
But do you think this lack of equilibrium somewhere between both the genders is to be blamed, or maybe the conditioning, how we are being raised, ultimately maybe depends upon, our parents and their parents, the way we have been conditioned?
Conditioning is there, but why do you surrender to the conditioning? Why can't you raise your voice? Why can't you try to seek your individuality? Why do you blame the conditioning? Because if you have that element in you, that you want to speak for yourself, and you think you have those capabilities, you have those qualities in you, then you have to be a bit assertive. Don't be prey to conditioning.
Does that make us a rebel?
No, your attitude has to be, it has to be different. Because you don't have to be rebellious, but assertiveness is something different. And if you develop that thing in you, even without being rebel, you can stand up for yourselves, you can talk about yourselves, you can take lead in your course. That's what I think.
So being assertive is very important.
Assertive in a positive manner, okay? So that others also start believing in what you believe in yourself.
So, the teaching industry for 30 years. So, being a professor, was that something you always wanted to be?
It wasn't my plan initially, because I have lawyers and administrators in my family. My husband got retired from Indian Administrative Services. My son has done his law from Jindal Global University and is working in Delhi. So I was also inclined towards that. But it so happened that I got into teaching because there were vacancies at that time, and as I saw my friends applying and getting into jobs, so I was also I got swayed away by that. But once I started teaching, the kind of the appreciation, the reverence that I felt, and the satisfaction, when you get the feedback from your students, when they admire you like anything, you just feel like, it's so gratifying that once I was in, I stayed, I continued.
As you mentioned, the feedback which you get gives you a lot of satisfaction. But that does bring back me to my previous question. You followed a traditional, a profession. You chose a traditional profession for yourself, though you probably had different interests. Was there some sort of pressure, that you should go with a traditional profession?
No.
It would be comfortable. It would be, you'll be back home one time, something.
Actually, as I told you that I have administrators in my family. My father was also into that. And he was willing, like he was very aspirant for that I should get into administration or at least go into judiciary. And that's why I did my law also. But I wasn't able to, like, I wouldn't say that I didn't work hard, but it so happened that clearing competitive examinations, I mean, it's very tough. So, and I was into teaching. I got into teaching even at that time when I was in the dilemma of what to do, what not to do. I had my interest of going into administration, but there were a number of choices available to me. And there was no pressure from anybody in my family. And especially if I think that why I'm into teaching, why not into administration, it's more because of me, because my father has he always aspired me to be into that. So I like teaching because I had my teachers whom I used to look up to. One of my teachers was very inspiring, and she, looking at her, I used to think like if any day I would become a teacher, I'd be like her. So my interest was also there. My inclination was also there. So there wasn't any kind of pressure. And I didn't opt for it because that was the, suitable or only available option before me, or it has to do anything with my, being a woman or something. So
well, this still prevails, I mean, not being asked or, they're asked to opt for such comfortable, I won't say it's a comfortable profession, of course it has its own challenges and pretty. But they're still, asked, go and become a teacher and be back home one time, and all of that. It would be very easy for you once maybe you'll be married or what do you think?
I think since you are in social media and you are in publishing house, I think you yourself are an example that if you want, you can go into different fields. And I have girls in my family also, my niece, my cousins, they are in different fields. And they're into media, they're into administration, they're even into policing. So I don't think now, the scenario is such that you are into teaching because that's the only available option. Rather, you are into teaching because you have a liking for teaching. Because I have my students, those who are very brilliant and they perform so well, and they are even in curricular activities, you find them always participating. And they have their first choice to go into education. So I think it's a choice. It's your preference. Yeah.
So you've been in the teaching industry for 30 long.
Yeah, 35 plus.
You must have, witnessed generations after generations. तो ऐसा कभी लगा किसी point in time पे कि यार ये generation पिछली generation से थोड़ी different है, ये जो अभी coming generation है, this is very different from last to last generation?
Actually, I have seen changes, because with every generation you see changes. With every age you see changes. Changes are inevitable. They are sure to occur. So I see, if I think of my students, a few years back, they used to be more teacher's pet, okay? And they used to, take advice and always be around you for the guidance and to take the feedback. And they used to feel very happy if they are, their favorite students or so. But nowadays, especially in the last couple of years, I've seen since the time, COVID, we have had online classes and all. So somehow I find this that now students don't prefer to come on the campus. Even if they come, they have certain other objectives rather than attending the classes in the typical classroom setup. And I think the reason being because, they have handy information, The information is available at their fingertips, and the magical, the digital platforms.
And it has replaced teachers, professors. And even with AI coming up, do you think it's going to very shortly replace Maybe
No.
you.
I don't think there is a serious threat to the existence of teachers, because you can never devalue the role of a good teacher in your life. Just one word of a good teacher, the teacher whom you look up to, will change your perspective, will change your life. That human element has to be there, because the students' brains are not like the empty vessels, that can be filled with a lot of information. I mean, they need to be ignited. The light of knowledge has to be there. And for that, you need someone, a real teacher, the one who comes up, with his original, the way of style, his teaching, his original thoughts. Even with AI, the abbreviation AI, artificial intelligence. If something is artificial, how can it replace the original? The original thoughts only come from the human brains. And human brains can create AI, but AI, I don't think, will ever produce a human brain.
Gen Z is completely dependent on,
But ultimately, everything is coming from the human brain. So the originality holds everything together. It can do miracles, but for that you need a human brain. I don't think it is ever replaceable.
But don't you think, since people have started using, or started showing their dependencies on AI, it's going to somehow compromise with the quality? Quality as in, let's say if I have to write an email, I'll probably go and, I'll give the command to AI.
Do believe in it. Because something which is available and you don't apply your brains would definitely affect creativity. And that is why the creativity has the importance of creativity in the present scenario is even more. And the creative person, be it in any field, like he's going to create a niche for himself. And he will be considered, as somebody who is very important for his contribution in the society. Yeah.
Well, since you're a professor, and during our discussions, you mentioned you sent your son to UK.
Yeah.
It's something that you're believing in the Indian education system, or though?
No, it's not that. Actually, I have full faith in the Indian education standards. It was just like, a unanimous decision, a family decision. Actually, it resulted because of the experience that we had, which was very fresh on our minds at that time. Because my husband was sent to Australia for he was undertaking a study cum training program in the University of Melbourne. And we also spent, a good part of the year over there. My children were in high schools at that time, and we opted for their leave of absence from the school. So they used to go to the campus, with my husband. And they were allowed to avail the facilities, the internet and everything, the library. And since they were on the absence of leave, but with the condition that they had to finish their assignments, which they could do online so they used to sit on the computers over there without any fuss. Nobody used to, come and stop them or, make them stand from there or something. It was very facilitative. A very relaxing environment was there and more rewarding. So the experience was very fresh, because after 2 years, my son was ready for his university. So since I have a personal liking for UK, so we decided to send him to UK. But later on, my younger son, he preferred to stay in India. He never, mentioned. Actually, this was the inclination of my, the elder son, who is here with me right now. So that he wanted to do his graduation from there. But the younger son didn't ever express any such desire. And we found Jindal Global quite, suitable for that. It has all those global standards, in terms of quality of education and also the facilities. So he did his graduation from here only, and and he's working also here. Of course, he has also his plans, for his master's. He's going to UK. But then again, it's a very personal choice. So there's nothing that we have any less faith in Indian education system.
The Gen Z is pretty much driving, or maybe let's say, they prefer going outside. It has become a trend ki baar jana hai, mute inni ke liye ja rahe. So what do you think?
Actually, pressure is more here. Pressure, I think it's like the stress. And the stress is in the system. I mean, it's not just the academics or education alone. Like, this is a part of Indian society that you have so much of pressure. Every time, like, you feel like, you feel like you're worked up with this thing or that thing. Over there, if I compare, I find, like, I have my own experience, and my husband was there in Melbourne. Even I used to accompany him to the library. I did my, a certificate course, from the campus into creative writing or something. The classes used to be fun, and they were very rewarding. And after every class, you had a feeling that you have learned something. That's very important. So, yeah.
So when you came back, did you ever try implementing such things into your class?
A lot. Because if you make your conventional classroom structure an interactive one, you will get results. You will get your students more engaged in the classroom process with the teachers. And, because if you have interaction and some sort of kind of discussion over something, so the things that come out, even from those students whom you think they would not participate, they can also come in with something, that startles you. Oh, you have never thought like she would speak, so she would say that. I mean, that angle, so that's very important. So that comes out automatically. And now with the digital media and platform and things like that, you have PowerPoint presentation, you have other stuff. So everything has almost become the same. What is happening out there, it's happening in India also. It's just that the teacher-student rapport, I mean, there is a bit different, because their teachers are not that involved with the students. They email you, about the occurrence of their classes, and you have to be there for that class. Here in India, because you have a very tight schedule, you have a very the structure of timetable and everything, and you just keep, intimidating your students about being absent from classes or not submitting their assignments on time. So the scene is a bit different. It's India.
It's me actually do a fun question. Let's say you were asked to become the education minister for 24 hours. What would be the plausible changes you would like to get into the system?
Plausible changes. First of all, I think the number of colleges and institutions should be less. And the focus should not be on the number of admissions in the colleges. The focus should be on the quality of education. And rather than providing them degrees which don't serve any purpose later on, they should be given some sort of training, some sort of vocational courses that can help them to fetch jobs or employability, that can hone their skills to get some sort of, they can make their own livelihood. So that's very important. So my focus would be on lessening the number of colleges, getting the qualities better, and also the recruitment of teachers is very important. You just can't disperse, the jobs like that to the teachers. You have to make sure that this is what, their interest, and they're genuinely, they want to be in the system, they want to be in education. Because it should not be like, come and avail the opportunity, the vacancies are lying out there. Teachers ban jao.
Because ultimately, teachers are in the future of the country. Because
Yeah, surely. Yeah, interest has to be there, because if you are a good teacher, if you're genuinely interested in your work, you're definitely going to make a difference in your student's life. You're definitely going to contribute to society.
So does it ever happen that, like you mentioned, it's been 25 years. So like your students, they must be like, do they still come and meet you, talk?
I have, that reminds me of one of my students, Shikha. She also is into media, and she's in touch with me, and like she's very happy whenever like we exchange sort of greetings to each other. A lot of students are there, those who are still in touch with me through Facebook, through other platforms. So it's there, and it's very gratifying.
Then that clearly very well justifies that. Because there's quote in Sanskrit, I believe, Guru.
Guru Vishnu.
Well, I just got to know that your son has been composing music out of your poems. And you started writing poetry in first. Something like that.
The writing, I think it came to me very naturally. As I mentioned, that I have an emotional intensity. So if you happen to read my poems, I don't want to talk much about because I am not an accomplished writer or so. But my poems are an amalgam of, all human emotions, all shades of human emotions, of everyday experience. So it so happened every time whenever I had an urge to write, long back, I used to write, and I used to write in those pages which were lying here and there. So just to know and just to, identify them, that's just being written by me. I used to put my signature, sort of, so that later on, if I come across, I can actually, know that it's written by me, it's penned on by me. So I used to do it a lot, and never cared whether they were all in collected form or in one book or sort of. But then I had a couple of friends, those who were into writing, and they rather became famous because of their books being published, and they used to take that very seriously, their writing element. So they advised me that why don't you write, and why don't you keep one diary at least, and why don't you get your poems published. So when I had 50, 60 to my, a 50, 60 number of my poems, and I was just discussing this, one of my friends, who is a very famous fiction writer, Dr. Riha Kastavar. She's now a retired professor. And I have shown my gratitude for her because Ussi mein qaid Ussi se Riha, the title of my book that she suggested me out of one of my poems. So she advised me that you should get your books published. And then because my son, he's into music, and he's done his graduation and his master's in different subject, but because of his passion and because of his potential in music, he decided to continue and look for his career prospects in music. So I was just wondering, I just once told him that I like this so much, that Gulzar's, poems and everything, they're being composed, and it's so nice to hear them. So I also wish that somebody can make compositions on my poems. So he said just like that, very casually, okay, you show me one of your poems, I'll just make composition. So I just showed him one of my poems, and he took that poem away from, he took that page, and just came after 5-10 minutes. He didn't take much time. And he said, would you like to listen how I've composed? And he sings also very well. He's a very good singer. So when he sang that composition to me, I was thrilled, I felt as if he's put in life into my lines, and they are breathing and dreaming. So I was really, really happy. And then later on, it became sort of practice. If ever like I used to write anything which has the rhyming scheme that is suitable for converting into a song. Actually, I developed that thing also later on, because I used to write initially poems which were जिसको अतुकांत कहते हैं. I mean, in which the rhyming scheme, I mean, doesn't have to be like in a very proper structure. But later on, I developed, my writing pattern into such that if ever he wishes, he can create compositions of that.
The bachelor, English professor, and you write in Hindi. Isn't that contradictory?
Actually, this is my book, which has, I mean, this book is in Hindi, which has my poems, which has come out into print. But I have my plans. I can write later. I mean, if anything else I have to do, I'll do that in English. But I would like to say that Hindi being my mother tongue, whenever I have to write something, whenever there is an urge, so the diction, the choice of words, everything, like my head is, my mind is already filled up. They're there already. I just have to choose them. I mean, things fall into place and so seamlessly that I think, yeah, this is how I can best express that particular emotion, that particular experience. So it's my mother tongue. Like, I'm very comforting. I mean, I'm very comfortable with this, just like you are comfortable with your mother. But of course, I would like to add here that I have a lot of admiration for English language and literature. It's one of the most beautiful languages in the world. And it has like rich literary tradition, great thinkers, original thinkers, eminent writers. And I owe my loyalty also to it, because it has given me the platform to stand on my own feet. So I do have plans to write in English as well.
That's great. You mentioned your son proposal. I started using your poetry as well. So what is your take on, he's part of every independent?
Yeah.
What is your take on this? The artists over there. Can you name some of this apart from your son?
Yes, Samir Rahat is there. He is a good friend of my son. So I think indie music stands for independent music. And independent music, as I understand it, doesn't have to depend on the Bollywood access or any kind of, the clubs or bands or something. Like you can have your own music, and you can try to express everything through your music. You are the sole, owner of your music that you create. The music that you feel comes from your soul, and you're the creator, you're the composer, you're the producer. So the only thing is that in India, you see that, I mean, it's not that much into vogue like it's out there and other countries. There you find, people really, I mean, they're thriving with success. Here in India, a lot has to be done. But the responsibility ultimately lies with the indie musicians only. If they are able to cut through the noise and they are able to produce good music, they will definitely fetch audience for themselves.
So is there a lot of struggle?
Struggle is there. Struggle is a part of life. I don't think in any field you get fame and success without facing the struggle which is inherent in that system.
Being a mom,
Yeah.
scared at any point in time, what if he doesn't make it?
It's very natural, and especially for a mother. But I have my anxiety, I have my concerns, but I don't mix my concerns with his concerns because he's already having those. And I believe that if he is working hard, trying to hone his skills every day and bringing out something, which is new, novel, and very catching, then it may take some time, but he's surely going to create a niche for himself.
pretty sure you're an artist yourself. I mean, writing is an art. From one artist to another, you can definitely understand well. And since we have your son with us today, we would really like him to come up and, talk a bit with us about this entire independent music industry.
Yeah, that would be so nice.
It would be a pleasure hearing some of his compositions, maybe. So
Okay.
let's welcome Shikha Shrivastava. Welcome to Between the Lines, Shikha. We are really happy to have you with us. So we'll come to your guitar session a bit after a while, but I have some questions for you. Since you're an artist, an indie music artist, and how did it all start in the first place? Like, why independent music? And that too in a country like India where, this isn't very receptive, I believe.
Yeah, it's not. I would like to kind of clarify something like I refrain from categorizing myself as an indie musician. I've been fortunate enough to work in Bollywood projects as well. In fact, I started my journey in a Bollywood project as a music programmer. I feel the lines are quite blurred nowadays between indie music and film music. It all depends on how a song does. If an independent artist puts out a song and it does well, it's highly likely that it might end up being singed in a film. In the same way, if a film song does well, at the end of the day, the song, regardless of the nature of its context, if it's a film or an independent song, is the meritocracy of the song that defines its success. So, however, I do agree with the fact that there is an ongoing rise in independent music, specifically because of the way the nature of consumption of music has changed. Nowadays, artists no longer have to depend on a film for them to get the music out. The industry has become very decentralized, and it's very easy to put a song out for an artist. And if the song does well, it's entirely based on its own meritocracy.
But do you think it's getting its due credit? I mean, we talk about Imagine Dragons, Arcade Fire, but how many of us, recognize Anuv, Jain, maybe because of one of the recent hits, I believe. But people in general do not know much about Anuv or let's say Prateek, Kuhad. What is your take on this? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, Imagine Dragons, the level of success independent musicians have seen abroad. I don't think Indian independent musicians have seen that level of success. Probably because abroad, there is no such thing as independent music. There is music and then there are films. In India, films and music always were kind of put in one pool, and now they are slowly starting to segregate. So even for people, it's a new consumption experience when they are just listening to a song just for the song itself, as opposed to not fitting that in the context of an entire story. So I think we're definitely getting there. Prateek Kuhad is seeing a lot of success abroad as well as in India, probably because of the nature of consumption, how people consume music abroad. So we're definitely getting there. I think it's just a change that people are getting used to.
do you agree somewhere, even like till date, for us, art is not at that, level. I mean, for us, art is like we start compartmentalizing art. Like we've categorized independent music, Bollywood music, the way you mentioned, and abroad it's just music or it's just art.
Yeah.
So do you feel, I mean, we are still lagging like a lot when it comes to treating it like art is not something, which should be treated like a hobby. I mean, even parents till date say, "Ki, if you're interested in playing an instrument or something, you should consider it as a hobby and not a full-time profession."
No, I get that. I mean, I totally understand that. I think it all comes down to how disciplined you are. I think the distinction between a hobby and taking it professionally, it's defined by the discipline you put into it. For any art form to succeed, The discipline it requires is something else. It requires a lot of time and efforts, and it requires like legit dedication. And a lot of people, they start out with a lot of excitement, but it's very hard to persist.
Maybe because of that struggle, there is a lot of struggle, especially in our country, when it comes to pursuing art. There's a lot of struggle involved. Parents do not support, society do not support.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of resistance when it comes to pursuing art. That resistance is probably because of the uncertainty of the nature of field. Indians are not very risk-averse people. However, I have had experience abroad as well, and art is not something that's like freely just handed out there as well. Even their parents are usually, a bit skeptical if their children wants to pursue art. I think it's just the nature, it's just the uncertainty of it. And I mean, if you're able to kind of at some point monetize on it, or show some sort of results, then I think parents also, they kind of ease down with time. So yeah, I think that's how I see.
Well, I believe Shikha was I guess they are very cool and supportive parents. So you must not have certain things.
Actually, if you talk about parents being supportive, I think supportive parents are those parents, those who have their children interest in focus. I mean, if like all parents, they are they love their children and they do as best as possible. But when you call yourself supportive parents, so it means you have your children's interest in your heart and mind and focus. So yeah, for that matter, like we are supportive, but we do have our concerns, and a lot of competition is there. But then we still think about it, like which field doesn't have competition? And it's the hard work, and then constant trying to improve yourself in your qualities. So sooner or later, like, and this is very different. I mean, this industry is different. This field is different. I mean, it doesn't have like the openings, proper openings. It doesn't have a set procedure to enter. So parents have to be more patient, okay? And they have to consider this, that they can't kind of, keep nagging their children with WH questions, like what, when, how. It will take its own process. You just have to be there. And when you are there, you have to be actively involved, because your son or your daughter, whosoever is any kind of field which is challenging, which is very competitive, and that involves in certain other elements also. It's not just that your hard work can pay you off. I mean, बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं. So you as parents, like, you have to be very, very considerate of those things also. So I think we are able to do that, and he knows that that we are always there, and he has to be in the field because he has to remain in the field. It will take its time. It will take its course of time, but eventually the things will be like as he has dreamt of, or what he looks forward to for himself.
Absolutely, you're very blessed. Coming back to you, nepotism is a word which we hear very often in this particular field.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience anything like that during your initial days, maybe?
Nepotism, I feel, is like a very natural way of how things progress. But of course, people always prefer to push their own blood in the field. However, the litmus test of any piece of art or music is if it's received well by the audience. So you can have all the paid advertisements, and you can flood someone's feed with your music. But if the music isn't really connecting with the audience or that particular person, all it takes is just one scroll to just
to move ahead.
Just to move ahead.
Correct.
So yeah, having said that, yeah, nepotism can definitely give you an edge. It can give you an initial push. And if you are blessed to be a good musician, and if you have that initial push, yeah, you can play that card very well. But again, if the music doesn't speak, it's not going to get you much ahead. So I feel like nepotism shouldn't intimidate people that much. They should just surround themselves with people who give them legit, valuable feedback about how their music is. And yeah, they should focus on working on their craft more than they should worry about.
That's
Correct. It's more about, being persistent, for
And yeah, absolutely. Being very honest with you.
and you should also like try to be, I mean, your feeble-mindedness should not be there. You have to have a strength of mind.
correct.
I mean, you can't be susceptible to such things because you know that you've already decided something which is going to be more challenging for you. So that strength of mind is really important. And I think parents have a lot to do about that because they are actively involved and they are trying to, they are seeking to minimize their anxiety, concerns, and children. I mean, they have their back. So I think this particular problem of children, being harassed because of nepotism, it would be lessened to some extent.
But then, we hear a lot about suicides, depression, anxiety. People get into this, and the moment they probably see the reality of how does this all works out, everything, starts falling down for them.
Yeah.
So have you encountered any such thing around you?
Yeah, I mean, we keep hearing a lot of competent professionals, being pushed to the verge of suicide. And a lot of it has to do with the unstructured way of how the finances and the cash flow work in this industry.
Right.
It's very common to hear that, people are still waiting for the payments, like huge lump sum amounts of payments. And so, yeah, there's definitely that lack of regulation when it comes to, the remunerations that people should be getting on time. That is one harsh reality that a lot of people are not able to face. And, I really hope with time, more regulations come into place, more structures come into place. We have this body called IPRS in India, which is, slowly changing the way and, slowly putting some sort of structures into place. And hopefully, that pushes more and, there are better regulations and, better cycles of cash. I think a big factor is the money, because of which people are quite stressed out.
Yeah, that's true. Because even parents don't have any problems. Like if they find their children getting independent with whatever choice they opt for their career.
All right. Well, where do you derive your inspiration from? Who is your inspiration? Your muse?
My muse. I mean, I've always been very, very fascinated with Pharrell Williams, Mr. A.R. Rahman. These guys are like very, like their breadth of work is like they've done like they're very eclectic actually. They made amazing background scores, amazing dance numbers, romantic numbers, sad songs. So definitely, I look up to any artist who has, constantly redefined their own art and, not really let themselves define with just one sound. Because that's what I try to do in my case as well. So yeah, these two names come to my mind because I've always been very fascinated by their work.
That's wonderful. So, without wasting any more time, I would like you to play something for our audience.
I like to play one song from her book. It's called Haina. I composed that, so I'll perform that.
Please.
आईना हूँ मैं, मुझ में झांको तो कभी अपनी बेताबियां, मुझसे बांटो तो कभी। आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं। दिल खोल कर बातें किया करो, मुकम्मल सी जो लगे मुलाकातें किया करो। बनकर ख्वाब मेरा आँखों में समाओ कभी, अपनी बेताबियां मुझसे बांटो तो कभी। आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं। दर्द तेरा है मेरे दिल में पलता है, ये रह गुजर है मेरा मेरे साथ चलता है। बनकर महताब मेरा राहों में आओ तो कभी, अपनी बेताबियां मुझसे बांटो तो कभी। आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं, आईना हूँ मैं।
Wow. It was very beautiful. I mean, अभी आप I guess अगर एक और अंतरा बोलते हैं, क्या बोलते हैं, I'm not sure. I would have actually, कहते हैं ना, जो एक अच्छा म्यूजिक होता है, it has the power, you kind of feel it within and you probably tear it down. I mean, I'm not sure. मतलब काफी खूबसूरत है and thank you so much, Shrivastava. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this with us. And with that, stay tuned for the next episode and for more such interesting conversations. Bye-bye. Take care.